Teach me about the Great Lakes. Teach me about the Great Lakes. Welcome back to Teach Me About the Great Lakes, a twice-monthly podcast in which I, a Great Lakes novice, ask people who are smarter and harder working than I am to teach me all about the Great Lakes. My name is Stuart Carlton, and I work with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, and no guest host today. We are recording this just before the winter holidays, and everybody is busy running around frantically, and so they don't really have time to record an interview, which is fine. My way of coping with the end-of-year rush is by doing things that are not my main job. It's, more fun to do the fun things. Maybe not the best coping mechanism, but it's mine. Anyway, so we're only solo today, but, so we're just going to jump right into it. We got a couple guests coming on to talk about the documentary film that I've just seen called The Eerie Situation, which is a really neat film about algal blooms in Lake Erie, which, of course, is a really important issue to the lake. But also there's some broader points, I think, that they're going to make, that the guests are going to make. Anyways, that's David Ruck. He's the director. And also on there is Stephanie Gongula, Hall of Famer. She's going to talk about the Thunder Bay Film Festival and give you information for checking that out. So we're just going to just jump straight to it. I hope you're having a great new year, and we will be back in a couple weeks. We're joined today by two guests, not one, but two guests. And the first one is David Ruck. David Ruck is the president and producer at Great Lakes Outreach Media. And he is the director, I guess, of this fantastic film, The Eerie Situation. And also our good friend, Hall of Fame guest Stephanie Gongula, maritime archaeologist and resource protection coordinator at the Thunder Bay, oh my gosh, what do y'all call it? Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Yes, I just think of it as Thunder Bay now. We're on familiar terms. David, how are you today? Stephanie, how are y'all both today?
Wonderful. Glad to be here. Excited.
Yes, absolutely. So exciting to be on this illustrious podcast, Teach Me About the Great Lakes, because that's what we love to do, is learn about the Great Lakes.
What is a Hall of Fame? What does that mean? Stephanie, how did you get this title?
It's pretty special, David. You may graduate to such a title someday. Yeah, maybe. I've been honored to be on Stuart's program. I think this is my third visit.
Jeez, O.P.
No, what it does, the way it actually works to become a Hall of Famer, and when I click end on whatever the recording thing is, I think to myself, that person was a Hall of Famer.
Well, there you go.
And then if so, you are inducted. Yeah. And if I don't think that, then they're not. And that's okay. Most of our guests are not Hall of Famers, but some are. And so then there's no induction ceremony. There are no rights, no privileges, certainly no cash.
I feel like the pressure's on, though.
It is.
Well, I mean, it is, because I'm going to click end. We're on Zoom, and I'm going to click end at one point, and then I will either think to myself, that was a Hall of Famer, or I won't. Yeah, I mean, the pressure is on. Well, so here's the question. Eerie situation. I guess we can start. So for people who are familiar, I'm peeking a little bit. If people aren't familiar, tell us, give us the broad strokes of the film, and then I'm going to talk, I think, in some detail about how you got interested in it. But broad strokes, what's this about?
It's really about the dire situation that one of our Great Lakes finds itself in on an annual basis. Harmful algal blooms in Lake Erie, and what's being done about it, what's not being done about it, what sort of drivers are responsible for it, who's impacted by it, what's impacted by it, and it's a really great overview of the science, the policy, the public sentiment surrounding this very complex issue that, if you pay attention to the media, especially if you're from Ohio, because this is your backyard, you might get an article here or there about a very specific topic related to harmful algal blooms in Lake Erie. This is trying to make sense of it all, put it in one place so that the average citizen can have an educated conversation about this and hopefully feel moved to, participate more in the process of influencing decision makers, let's say, on taking meaningful steps to actually address this issue, because it's not just going to be happening there, which it is. but we're seeing these harmful algal blooms globally increase in scope and scale. Like it said in the film, Lake Erie is the canary in the coal mine for the Great Lakes because of its depth and susceptibility to changes more rapidly than some of the other lakes. So what's happening there could be happening elsewhere. So it's kind of a warning as well.
And so you chose for entry point, though, is Toledo. Was it 2014, maybe? There was a period, or maybe not your entry point, but part of the focus of it is there was this period of several days, 2 or 3 days, I think 3 days, where they couldn't drink their water, right? Because the algal blooms were so bad. Was it overwhelming the treatment plant, I guess? They couldn't keep up? Was that the deal?
Back then, things have changed largely in terms of preparedness for such a thing. They haven't solved the problem, but like at the time, they weren't equipped in any way, shape, or form to have advanced warning systems to tell the water treatment managers if something like a harmful algal bloom full of microcystin was going to enter their plant. And that's exactly what happened. This bloom migrated over their intake, which is about 3 miles offshore in Lake Erie, entered the plant unbeknownst to the plant personnel, and found its way into the service district, which of course created alarm statewide, made national news, and around 600,000 people were told, don't drink this water, don't shower in it, don't bathe in it, and much less drink it. I think a lot of people thought that was going to be a wake-up call and create the needed, that was the environment needed to create the change necessary to meaningfully address this issue, this crisis. And really nothing's changed.
And well, things have changed in terms of the like the warning system you were saying, right? But so they've worked on that side, but in terms of the actual inputs, not a lot different there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, there's millions of dollars being spent to study the lake, and we've learned a lot. We're really a global leader in terms of monitoring water quality because of the condition of Lake Erie. It's basically a living science project. Come here, do your research here, do science here. It's great for that. But in terms of solving the actual problem, the words you'll hear come from elected officials would make one believe that they're dealing with the issue, like with a program like H2 Ohio. The way they talk about it is like, look what we're doing for water quality. When in reality, it's more kicking the can down the road. It does nothing to really limit or reduce the drivers for harmful algal blooms. But it's a great program. It just needs to be talked about differently. We should invest in wetlands. We should invest in water technology. We should invest in cover crops and all these things. We should be doing that. But is it actually solving the problem? Is it addressing the actual drivers of the problem? And that's something that can be debated. I mean, even the Ohio EPA has said, somewhere between 80 and 90% of the nutrient loading going into Lake Erie comes from agricultural runoff. So their own Department of Environmental Quality has stated that, and any scientist studying the issue knows that.
You're hoping to kind of get the message out and help spur action and things like that, but very little has changed. Very little meaningful has changed in terms of actually working on the harmful algal bloom, preventing them.
Well, let's talk about farming, because the Farm Bureau wrote a 1,500-word response to my film 2 days after it premiered at the Cleveland Film Festival, where it won the global health competition, saying that my film, concluding that it was unconscionable and without merit, which honestly, like, I'll put that up on the wall next to any awards that it's gotten, because if you've upset the Farm Bureau, then you're probably doing something right. And really what I conclude from that is they want to put a wedge between the farming community and this film. It's not that, basically they don't want anyone to watch it. They don't want anyone in their, that they feel that they're representing to watch this, because heaven forbid someone, put on their critical thinking cap. If you want to be an organic farmer, if you're, soil health is a priority for you. If you're a new farmer trying to start out and get your feet underneath you, there's just very little, like a pittance in that $450-ish billion in the farm bill to incentivize farmers to do the right thing. The incentives pull you the opposite direction. They pull you away from healthy food, away from sustainable agriculture, away from really anything that's good for us or the planet, and steers you the opposite way. So, what are we left with? Well, we're left with farmers leaving the profession. Their kids don't want to do this. They're having to sell their land, give up this thing that they love. Farmers, the ones that I've met, the smaller farmers, they're a special kind of person. Like, they love what they do. They feel like it's a moral thing, like we're feeding the country. They're hardworking, they're innovative. They love what they do, but the cards are stacked against them in terms of the system supporting them. And what is the system supporting? Well, the lobby, which is, it's either first or second in the nation in terms of funding and resources to get their spin across, is really pushing incentives for these giant agro firms. And so as long as that's sort of what's incentivized and encouraged and permitted to, continue proliferating in places like Ohio and beyond, you're going to see local and regional and national waterways continue to be threatened by the consequences of growing our food this way.
Thinking about the individual farmers versus the large incentives, right? And the large incentive structures, which, an individual is just generally speaking are not going to be able to combat against that, right? And so it seems to me that like working on this problem requires working on those incentive structures, through subsidies and things like that. Yeah. So I get the sense from you that, that you're this seems like you weren't just doing this as an intellectual exercise. So you seem pretty passionate about this stuff, right? This isn't just a film that you made. Is this something where does this passion come from, do you think? Is it environmental stewardship or something else?
I grew up on Lake Michigan. I considered it to be like a family member or, the wise person, in the neighborhood, my whole young life. And I've just always been drawn to the natural environment. And, I went and I worked with NOAA, did some storytelling there. My first documentary was about a polluting chemical company near my hometown. For me, like initially, like these were kind of stories that were a little bit like the X-Files shows that I was watching, where there's this kind of unseen menace, in this case, like hidden chemicals in the drinking water that, you couldn't really see, but they were there and they could hurt you. And those kinds of elements like really drew me to that kind of storytelling. In the case of this film in Lake Erie, I went into it and this is what I do. I don't try and go and explore a topic that I really know a whole lot about. I know that this is a Great Lake. I care about the Great Lakes, and that something was wrong with it. But like going into it, I knew nothing other than it turns this color of my shirt every summer. So I wanted to know why. And, to me, like I have to go through this process of being educated on the topic and feel like I have all those elements, that are convincing to me in some way, shape, or form, or that I feel like, okay, I have a beginning, a middle, and an end to this thing. Through that, like I couldn't have had this conversation with you when I started. I wasn't an expert. As you learn things along the way, then I think a thinking person. I hope to consider myself one. You will be like incensed as you learn more, and so I'm hoping that the film, which the process of making it's been my education on the subject. I hope that for audiences, it's an education for them on the subject, and that they become passionate as well. And I do think like with an issue like this, I hear this from people in audiences where I go that like they're too afraid to have this conversation with people about the lake, about harmful algal blooms because they don't feel like they know enough. And the folks that are getting their information from the Farm Bureau, like they're given these little sound bites and these little nuggets of like, oh, they're attacking farmers. Oh, the science is unsettled. Oh, just these little easy to say things. And on the other side of that, are folks that, think there's something wrong. They're not sure what it is. They'd like to know more about it. It is a very complex, dynamic issue. And I'm hoping, and I think that a project like this puts all that into context, frames it in a way that's easy to understand, so that the folks who, have some doubt about what they've been told to say, who want to put some more thought into it, can actually have a conversation that has a little more nuance and to it. It's not. I'm basically like saying like there's the meme culture, and then there's the let's really get to what this is about.
So I have a couple. This is good. Where can people see the film? And then I want to make sure you say that. And then I have a couple of very specific questions. And then I want to bring it into a broader conversation about environmental films with the Great Lakes. We'll go there. But if someone wants to see it, other than, of course, at the Thunder Bay International Film Festival that we'll talk about in a minute, where can they go? Is it something they can see online, or or is it largely festival circuit right now?
It is still largely festivals and special events right now. I just got back from being out of the country for a month, like 4 days ago. So I haven't looked on our website calendar on any events that are scheduled. But if you go to www.theeriesituation.com and then click on events, there's a list of events there. I'm sure that there's a couple coming up, one of which we're going to be talking about with Stephanie at the Thunder Bay International Film Festival. There's another PBS screening that's going to come up sometime, probably late spring, early summer, for a number of different PBS affiliates. We've been on PBS once. Yeah, and then eventually we do intend to have this on some sort of on-demand platform. We're already getting a lot of requests for that.
Well, once it's there, we'll be sure to let our listeners know if they haven't been able to make it to a film festival or something. But so my question is this: you have these big things, you have this big story you want to tell, but you have to find people to tell the story, right? Otherwise, it's just you up there ranting. And so you find this is the process of making a documentary: is you find some protagonists, and I'm just curious, as someone, I'm not a filmmaker. So this one guy, the one you start with is this guy named Ken Sabin, I think is how he probably pronounces his name. And you'll also see people like our good friend Eddie Verhamy is on there. But so when you hear Ken, I guess here's my question. First of all, he's perfect, right? He's a boat builder in Point Place, Ohio, and you see him and he's got a really striking look. And then I guess my question is this: when you first heard him speak, and he has that distinctive, gravelly kind of voice, did you just do like a little fist pump and say, "This is my guy"? Or, how did you know? How do you get in touch with someone like that? And how do you know when it's the right person to talk to, I suppose?
Ken actually got in touch with me. We've been posting some photos along the way on the Great Lakes Outreach Media page, and somehow he came across them, and he started Facebook messaging me videos that he had taken from his sailboat of algae blooms. Some of those videos are in the film towards the beginning there. And he just kind of kept messaging me. So I'm in Ohio, I'm working on all this. And in the background, I'm focused on the science and all these scientists and trying to make sure I understand the science and spending a lot of time down there. And in the background is this guy kind of messaging me from time to time. Eventually I was like, okay, I gotta meet with this guy. He's across town. We're going to go meet up with him. We show up and he thinks that I'm going to give him a lecture and his friends a lecture on explaining what's going on with their lake. And I'm like, no, we're interested to know what you think about the lake, because you've been on it. You sent me these videos. You seem pretty excited about it. I'm curious what you think. And he was sort of like, oh, okay, well, sure. We'll talk to these people and talk to these people. And Ken to me was kind of the perfect person to help tell this story, because he loves the lake. He directly engages with the lake, and he's got these harmful algal blooms in this marina of his, and yet he's not really sure what they are, and he's not really sure what's causing them. He thinks he's been sick because of them, and he thinks that it's affecting his friends, people's businesses, and he just kind of wants to understand why. And that's kind of an ideal protagonist in a way, because he doesn't have an axe to grind per se. He's not like out after a specific thing. He just wants to understand the situation. And I think, I've seen, through knowing Ken and him being involved with the film, like I've seen him go from a guy we met one morning in Point Place, Ohio, who was confused as to why we were there, to someone who actively participates in public meetings. He's always showing up at our screenings and offering his experience. He's kind of become a champion for this issue in his own way, which is helpful to the other folks in his community who have questions about this. So like in any story, you never know how those stars are going to align to present somebody like Ken, who, essentially found us and found the film.
And so now let's bring it into this bigger idea, right? Stephanie, have I even introduced you yet? I think I have. If not, Stephanie Gondula, maritime archaeologist and resource protection coordinator at Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. So I guess first, let's do the whole deal. So when is the film festival? What do people need to do to see it? And then I want to talk about how you think about programming this and what the stories that you're telling are, and what do you think impact that has, I suppose. But first, when is it? I understand that after 2 years or more of virtual festivals, there's a big announcement to make here.
That's right. So this will be the 11th annual Thunder Bay International Film Festival, and very exciting because it is indeed, like you mentioned, the first time we'll be back in person since January of 2020. So we did get our 2020 festival in before the world changed, and we were also able to maintain a virtual presence throughout the pandemic. But let me tell you, there's something really special about a film festival in person. You get to, meet the filmmakers and hear those stories that we've been listening to from David Ruck about the process, and about meeting these people, the players of the important topics and issues that we're covering. So a lot of the things that David said really resonate as far as why a national marine sanctuary based in the Great Lakes would put on a Ocean and Great Lakes Film Festival. There's lots and lots of reasons, but we are indeed connected to a national system. And so the National Marine Sanctuary System protects over 600,000 square miles of America's natural and cultural resources underwater. So they're underwater parks. Important thing about them is they are accessible. We celebrate the accessibility of these places. And when you bring that to the Great Lakes, the health of the waters, one of the topic, I suppose, that David covers in his film, The Erie Situation, is the health of these places, and accessibility is tied very closely to that. I can't go too long without mentioning shipwrecks, which is why Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary was designated.
The reason for the season, yeah.
The reason for the season, that's right. We've got just a few shipwrecks, and we've got almost 100 that we've documented, and we estimate there's at least that many more yet to be found. So this film festival is one of our biggest, most far-reaching outreach programs here at the sanctuary, which is headquartered in Alpena, Michigan, and that's where the film festival is, in our visitor center, which is 10,000 square feet of cool exhibits. So when you come for a film festival, which I'm assuming all your listeners will be inspired to do, and catch David's film on Friday night during our Great Lakes Gala, you can take a break from watching movies and explore the exhibits that talk all about our rich maritime history here in the Great Lakes. And I guess, I could go on and on about shipwreck stories, but I'll let you guide the discussion, Stuart. And
yeah, no, that's good. I want to we'll have to have you back. I want to talk about shipwreck stories. I want to talk about your Lakey nominated glass bottom boat rides, and all of this. But that'll have to be a different episode because we don't have time. One question I do have, actually, I have a couple of questions. One is, so it's unusual for a national park or whatever, or a marine sanctuary to host a film festival, right? So how did that idea get started, and why do you, I mean, you sort of beat around why you do it, but what do you think we gain from doing this other than getting a chance to see cool films by cool people?
Yes, so it is definitely that, seeing cool films by cool people. And even more so, I mean, we're really fortunate here in Alpena that our sanctuary headquarters is also a community center, if you will. It's free and open year round. So those exhibits, including our 100-seat theater where the film festival is, that's the core of it. It's really a place where people gather. And so that's afforded the sanctuary to offer really enriching programming. And the film festival is one example of that programming. So bringing these films, and of course we don't do this in a vacuum. We rely on partnerships not only with filmmakers like David, but with other film festival entities like the International Ocean Film Festival based in California. They curate hundreds and hundreds of ocean films every single year. So they're collecting the latest in ocean issues, the latest in ocean filmmaking, and we're able to partner with them and get those films. And then, of course, we love to add relevant Great Lakes content. And so I guess one of the main reasons it's important to have a program like the film festival is it's really bringing issues that you're not going to see many other places. I mean, we'll have, in addition to the Erie situation, we're going to have dozens and dozens of other films talking about the latest science happening in shark research, the latest science happening in acidification in both our ocean and Great Lakes. I could go on and on with the topics, the latest and greatest in cool surfing pics. So it really runs the gamut of the topics, but the key is, it's exposure. You're not going to get these topics, these treatment of these topics, many other places. And when you have skilled filmmakers like David that really educate the audience, so then they're empowered. That's one of the things David said I really loved is his goal. One of his goals is to make sure that everyday people like you and me, Stuart, can understand these issues that are important for us to understand so we can take action. And that's what these films are all about that you're going to see at the Thunder Bay International Film Festival.
Personally, you as someone who's been many times, plus I work for NOAA, so I have a lot of friends there. You feel like Stephanie does a great job putting it on, and if you go again, and it becomes this kind of reunion and really fun, unique experience for all the reasons Stephanie mentioned. Obviously, I'm not trying to talk over her, but it's unique and it's fun. And with the museum there, you can step aside and go tour a model of a ship, and it's great. It's a great place to do something like this.
So, Stuart, have you been to a film festival before yourself?
I haven't. Actually, this is what I was thinking about. I was just thinking about, I have attended the Thunder Bay Film Festival virtually with the Thunder Pass.
Yeah.
But I envision, so this is what I want to know. Are there, I feel like there are receptions with like sipping wine.
Absolutely. Because what is a festival without yummy food and beverages, for sure. So what I love about a film festival is, especially environmental film festivals, is the celebration of the topics and the issues that you're talking about. And there's nothing like the power of watching a film in a theater with people. I mean, it's different. Of course we love watching movies at home. We all do that. But there's something powerful with, when you see that amazing imagery on the screen of the shark feeding frenzy, or maybe some terrifying imagery on the screen of the harmful algal bloom that these people, out of Toledo have to drink that water.
Gross green. Yeah. Beautifully shot, disgusting water, right? It's like, this is the most beautiful, gross, right?
Right. Or just seeing cultures from, coastal cultures from around the world. When you're experiencing that in the theater with people, it's a irreplaceable experience. And then as a festival, you have the opportunity to talk about these issues while sipping wine.
So those conversations are kind of integral to it, right? Is getting to and it sounds like if you get a crew. So one thing, good advice that I got during my postdoc. I was at a postdoc at Purdue actually before I went on to work for Texas Sea Grant. And my postdoc mentor, Linda Prokopy is her name. She's amazing. She's working on these ag issues. She just got a very large research project called about sustainable ag, trying to just rethink the way that we do ag in the Midwest. And so it touches right in on this stuff. But she said, you got to find a conference to go to and go to that conference every year, because then you get a cohort of people, right? And maybe they're people who you work with exactly, or maybe it's just people who you interact with and learn from and become friends and colleagues with and things like that. So it never occurred to me that this film festival might be a chance for kind of that same thing. All right, so I'm sold. I mean, I'm not actually sold because I have 3 children under the age of 10, but I'm sold that I want to do it once they're older. But for those of us who want to do it now,
Yes.
What do we do? How do we get these tickets, and where do we go?
Well, right now, you can get a great holiday gift. The Thunder Pass is available for sale at thunderbayfriends.org. That is only $100. Heck of a great deal. It's your all access pass to the festival. So think about it. That's almost 100 films, locally catered, great food and beverages. And so that's what you want. You want to go to thunderbayfriends.org, purchase your Thunder Pass. Let's say you can't do the whole weekend. You can buy session tickets for $10 each. And when I say a session, there's 16 of those throughout the entire weekend. And, it's not just one film that you're going to see in a session. You're going to see anywhere from 4 to 10 films, depending on the length. Those sessions usually are about 2 hours long. And so what you need to do is just set your GPS for Alpena, Michigan, and head north on beautiful Highway 23, cruise up Lake Huron and meet us in Alpena. It's beautiful and snowy that time of year, so maybe allow a couple an hour extra driving
Watch
time.
out for elk on your way there.
That's right.
So I'm looking. It's like the one, right? It's the one. If you're doing the Michigan hand deal, it's basically the one, Alpena.
Your index finger. That's right.
Pointer.
It depends how you do a
GPS.
one. But yes, your index finger.
Isn't this the way? I didn't know. I mean, there's another way, but I wouldn't do that on air.
No.
Okay, fantastic. That's great. But also this year, something else I want to talk about. So I was thinking about, as we're going through the Lakeys nominations, which are actually out, and so one of the reasons that y'all were runner-up for the thing you were entered in is because of this great work you're doing with students, right? And these glass bottom boats, and so we love work with students. And so I think you're trying to do some student work with the film festival as well, right? Why don't you tell us about that?
That's right. This is one of my favorite programs with the festival because during the weekend, of course, we get lots of high school students and adults, but mainly adults coming for the festival. But we want the kids, our future stewards to experience these ocean and Great Lakes films and learn about. I mean, they're learning about not only the topics that we've been going over, but they're learning about new career paths. Who maybe some of them would be inspired by what David's cool job, right? And so we take into the classroom, we will take what we call the Sanctuary Sneak Peek. And it's about a 2-hour long program where we go into junior high and high school age classrooms. Part of the Sanctuary team will show a selection of films. Once again, they're not going to see these films most other places. There's a few you might be able to catch on Netflix or online, but for the most part, these students this is the only place they can see these films. They're learning about issues maybe they've never even heard about. And then we stick around and have a great conversation with the students, with their teachers. And it's a fun Sanctuary Sneak Peek is a big part of the film festival every year.
And then if for some reason we're not able to make it up to Alpena, or we make it up to Alpena and we want to see more films, we're not done. We said we want more. Give us more. Is there any other way that people can get involved with the film festival?
Absolutely. So since we did go virtual through the pandemic, we learned how to do it. And so why not continue? The virtual part of Film Festival will run from February 1st through February 12th. And the cool thing about that, if you did purchase the Thunder Pass to see it in person here in Alpena, that Thunderpass is also going to get you in free to the virtual
Really?
festival. It really will.
All this for $100?
Can you believe it? Yeah.
That's the best value in the Great Lakes.
It really is. It really is. And another, just to add, we talked about the glass bottom boat, but I will throw in if January is not a time you want to be on the road, I understand that. Come back in July and hop on the glass bottom boat. And we actually have other film programming in our theater year round. So you could still come experience films, and it's a little warmer in July in Alpena.
Well, this is really fascinating, and you should do that. Go to Thunder Bay Friends, get all your Thunder passes, and see. It's really great. It's really great. I was really glad to see some of that last year, and while I won't be there in person, I'm gonna probably participate again. And it's great for kids. Our kids loved it too, so that was super. But so it's been really great talking to you, Stephanie, and again, and you, David, about kind of filmmaking and the Erie, this really important film that you have and the drivers on this important algal blooms issue and what have you. But that's actually not why we invited you on Teach Me About the Great Lakes this week. The reason we invite you on Teach Me About the Great Lakes asks 2 questions, the first of which is this. If you could have a great donut for breakfast or a great sandwich for lunch, which would you choose? And we'll start with David, because Stephanie, we've heard from once or twice on this one.
This isn't fair because I will do both. I would do both. I will start my day with a donut, and I will have a great sandwich at lunch. So what how do I answer?
You answer it by picking one of the two. So you have those two, you're right. And then the way you answer is you select one.
I will drive down to Wesco here, local gas station that does an excellent job. They've got a bakery, somewhere that makes all these wonderful donuts and pastries, and I will go in there and I will get the one that with the yellow, the lemon frosting or the lemon filling, and the white frosting with the little yellow stripities across the top, and I'll get that, and I will eat it, and I will regret it, but I'll do it, and I feel good about it while I'm eating it, and then 10 minutes later wonder why I made that decision, but that, because I'm 42 now, I shouldn't be doing these things, but that's what I would do. That's what I would do.
Well, that's what we want. The thing is, it's just like in your filmmaking, you want to be honest, right? You want to represent the truth, or at least your perspective on the truth. And so I think it's the same thing here. That is what you would do. Stephanie, so you're a sandwich person, I remember. Has that changed? The thing is, we've had a lot of pandemic, which can make any sandwich person a donut person, right?
That's so true. You know what I would do, and this probably isn't fair, or I'm breaking the rules, but, just thinking of David's good point that we regret these decisions, I might have half a donut and then half a sandwich.
I tried to answer that way, and you said I couldn't, though.
Well, the thing is, are you in the Hall of Fame? I'm trying to remember. Let me look at the list of
I've earned it. I've earned it.
That's the one privilege. That's the one privilege. Yep, that's it. I didn't realize there was a privilege until Stephanie said that. And then, so that's the one privilege. Okay, half a sandwich, half a donut, the old combo.
Yeah.
So you let's see. Hungry Hippie, is that the place you sent us to once?
Oh, maybe so. Maybe I did, but I haven't, and they're outstanding. I mean, Alpena, we've got some great places to eat. But my new favorite donut, which I'm kind of more of a savory and sandwich person, but I feel like a donut right now. And I would get a cherry donut. This is very Michigan. A cherry donut with chocolate frosting is my new favorite.
Fantastic. A cherry donut. Where? What is the place?
There's a little place here in Alpena. It's called the Galley Sweet Shop. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's new, and yeah. And then I guess since I am a Hall of Famer and I get to have half a sandwich as well, I would go home for my half a sandwich because we just made some really good local bacon, which we try very hard to eat our local foods. And even though it is bacon, which isn't necessarily the healthiest thing, but it sure is darn tasty. And I would have a BLT. In fact, as soon as we hang up, I'm heading home to have a BLT.
You're going to have a BLT? It's December. Where are you getting the teas? What kind of teas are you having in December? Well, those teas are going to be tea for tasteless, but maybe the B is good enough to make up for the tea.
Yeah, it's good B and some fresh local bread. So local bacon, and maybe not local tomatoes, but
Local to the planet. That's
That's right.
Okay, this is running way too long. I've been screwed around too much. It's my fault, not yours. But David, briefly then, one other thing we like to do is the reason why we like to talk to filmmakers and artists, in addition to the nerdy scientists we like to talk to, is because we think that the Great Lakes are an important sort of resource, and we want people to think of it as a place with meaning and a place with beauty. And so one way that we like to do that is by sharing places that are special to, or asking our guests to share places that are special to them. So is there a place in the Great Lakes that's really special to you that you would share? And if so, what makes it so special?
I was blessed by the fact that I grew up on one of the Great Lakes. I grew up on Lake Michigan, and my folks have this little slice of property, but their neighbors had this, I don't know how many thousand frontage feet. And we kind of took care of that for them because they weren't always around. And they have this spot that if I wander through the woods, I walk up the backside of this dune, and it opens up into what's called a blowout, where it's forested on one side, forested on the other side, and then this big bowl shape with dune grass everywhere. And there's this one solo white pine tree that's probably the same age as I am, because I remember it being about 6 feet tall, and now it's like 40 feet tall. And it just looks out at this vista of Lake Michigan. And I go there at all hours of the day or night, all seasons. And being a photographer and a videographer, I love to go out there and just think, run around with my dog. And it's there's usually no one else there, obviously, but it's just this step back in time, really, of this untouched place. And for me, it's just kind of where I go to reflect and really be thankful for the life experience that I've had of having such a close connection to this lake in particular. But to me, the lakes are not just the lakes, but the things that surround them. And with that white pine, sort of that, I don't even know how it survives some of the wind conditions that go howling through there, just standing sentinel at this spot and having gone through all these winters. And it's just this reminder that nature is powerful and nature is beautiful. And regardless of what decisions we make as people to care for the planet, I think that the planet will turn around and will be just fine. It's but it will deal with us and in some way, shape, or form. And that's the place I go to be reminded of that.
That's beautiful. Thanks. How about you, Stephanie? Is there another beautiful place or special place where you would like to send us?
Well, goodness, pressure's on to have a deep philosophical answer.
I know, to follow that up.
Gee
Yeah, good luck.
whiz.
I mean, you could just pick there's a place where the wind sounds like farts or something. I don't know.
I do love, ever since I moved here, so I'm not from the Great Lakes. And so when I first moved here and spent my first winter, I remember being in awe of the sounds the ice makes along the shoreline of Lake Huron. I'm very fortunate to live just a couple blocks from the lake. And man, when I first heard that clinking and crashing, and I was like, what is that noise? So right now, and I probably have a different answer anytime you ask, but right now, the winter shoreline of Lake Huron is my favorite spot.
Fantastic. That sounds neat. Literally sounds neat, I guess, in this case. Well, everybody, I encourage you to go to Thunder Bay Friends .org, because it's an organization, I guess, and get a Thunder Pass. And also go to the Erie Situation. That's a .com, right, David?
Yeah.
And look at that work, and also look at the work. We'll put a link to. David's done some our area of concerns videos he did, which we were talking about with Chris Korleski a couple weeks ago, and those are really nice. And so let's check those out as well. I didn't get into those, so the staff will say, "Why didn't you get into those?" And I'll say, "Because we're talking about."
Shout out to Irene and Pat.
Oh, always a shout out to Irene and Pat. They deserve many, many shouts out. Anyway, but thank you, Stephanie Conjula, who is the research coordinator, I think. And, or is that your old title?
That's my old title. I'm now the resource protection coordinator and
resource protection coordinator and also maritime archaeologist. And David Ruck, who is the president and producer with Great Lakes Outreach Media. Thanks to both of you for these beautiful films, this wonderful film festival, and teaching us all about the Great Lakes. And thanks a lot to both Stephanie and David for coming on and talking to us about the film and the film festival. They're both really great, right? The film festival sounds awesome. I can't wait to be able to go eventually, but I'm going to be virtual at least until the kids are old enough to travel to a film festival. I don't know if they'll be there drinking wine. They might sip wine at a certain age, but at least I can be around sipping wine without having to worry about, like, having to go make pee-pees or poopies with him. So we'll get there. We ain't there yet. And thanks to David, the film was really worth checking out. If you can find a showing, they'll show it again on PBS. We will try to remember. I can't imagine we would forget, but we will try to remember to remind you during the episode sometime over the summer when they're going to show it again. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you in a couple weeks with another interview. Teach Me About the Great Lakes is brought to you by the fine people of Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. We encourage you to check out the great work we do at iiseagrant.org and at ILIN Grant on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media, at least for now. Teach Me About the Great Lakes is produced by Hope Charters, Megan Gunn, and Renee Miles. Carolyn Foley is our senior producer. Ethan Chitty is our associate producer and fixer. Our super fun podcast artwork is by Joel Davenport. Thank you, Joel. And the show is edited by the awesome Quinn Rose. And I encourage you to check out her work at aspiringrobot.com. If you have a question or comment about the show, please email it to teachmeaboutthegreatlakes@gmail.com or leave a message on our hotline, 765-496-IISG. You can also follow the show on Twitter, Teach Great Lakes. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. And, of course, keep grading those lakes.